continue. And when we are recording this, so if everyone or if anyone wants to rewatch it again, or if you weren't able to join us today, this will be archived on our website at arizonaalumni.com/careers. And again, we will have time for you to ask questions. You'll be able to discuss some of these topics with our speaker, Michael, and we will have that at the end, but you can utilize the chat feature to reach out to us, drop those questions in, and we'll get to those later in the program. So now it's time to introduce our speaker, Michael Scherotter. Thank you so much for joining us today. He is an alumnus of the University of Arizona, and he is currently the Principal Program Manager in Commercial Software Engineering at Microsoft Corporation. What a mouthful, right? But he is based in San Francisco. He works for Microsoft partners in media and entertainment, and he looks to help them build creation, production, distribution, and monetization solutions with Microsoft technologies. But Michael is actually educated as an architect, so he brings this sense of creativity and design and synergistic software development. And throughout his 26-year career, he has specialized in combining and hacking software in innovative ways. And before he was at Microsoft, he actually architected and developed a desktop CAD applications for Boise Cascade and managed software development teams and engaged with partners as a business solutions architect at MindJet. Michael has a Bachelor of Architecture from the University of Arizona and a Master of Architecture specializing in design tool development from UCLA. Michael's creative outlet for the past 30 years has been art journaling, which is a mix of drawing, painting, photography, collage, 3D sketching, and even virtual flight sketching using Microsoft Flight Simulator. Most recently, Michael has took a sabbatical and created a website, which is gallergist.com, that generates 3D virtual galleries from photo collections. He is a career coach, and he is a mentor in our Wildcat Mentor Society. So Michael, thank you so much for coming today. On the slide here, I have some of his sketches that I stole from his website, and they're just fantastic. So if you get a chance, you have the link here on your screen to go and check out some of Michael's work. And Michael, I will turn it over to you and stop my share so that you can start your presentation and talk more about how we can apply design thinking to our careers today.
Great. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm going to share. I've shared a PDF copy of the deck that I'm presenting, so you don't have to take notes if you don't want to. Everything is going to be that I'm presenting is in the deck, and I shared it in the chat of the talk. So again, as Lacey said, I'm going to be talking to you today about how to use design thinking in terms of your career. This isn't a totally original idea. I've been following along people in the world of design thinking for a while, but I'll sort of put my specific spin on this and the way that I look at this based on the background that I have. And what I do as let me see, why is this not, there we go. There we go. So I have actually 3 roles. You know, my day job where I make the money to support myself and my family. I'm a program manager at Microsoft, and what that means is I help companies build stuff. And I've been working within the companies of media and entertainment for years. And I also have found, as of late, I do career coaching. And as Lacey just said, I just took a sabbatical and I built a website, and I'm in the process of testing this out and building it. But all these go together, and you'll sort of see a thread that goes through all of this. And it's me. And you know, as Lacey said, I was educated as an architect, and with my architecture education, I sort of parlayed that into a different career, a career in software. And through that, I found that the intersection of creativity and technology was my sweet spot. I found that figuring out how to intersect things that people hadn't thought of together. That takes a huge amount of creativity. How to get this technology working with that technology. That is the area that I love working with, and how to use technology in creative ways. So, I actually, I developed I went through a workshop on developing a mission statement, and this is authentically 100% me, and you'll see this throughout everything that I've done and throughout my career. This is sort of the essence of me. I discover and craft connections linking creative processes that delight me with technologies that fascinate me, and sharing the results to inspire and motivate others. So you have a little bit of aspects of all of those, of all of the parts of my career in there. And the career for me, it really started with the education, and that education started at University of Arizona. And for me, it was I did a summer program a semester program at Denmark's International Study Program, where I studied architecture and design in Europe. I got the Bachelor's of Architecture from University of Arizona in 1993. And then I got a Master's of Architecture, specializing in combining architecture and computation in 1995, specializing in how do you build tools for design? How do you build tools for architecture? And that was where I found my sweet spot. I love design tools. My favorite design tool is a journal, and that's been the case for me for years. And this is where I really developed my love of design. And throughout this time, I've even increased my education, taking professional programs in data science. I found that every one of the conversations I was having with my customers in media and entertainment, every one of them started having an aspect of AI and machine learning. So I needed to learn that. I added that to my understanding, took an online program in data science. Now I can have that as part of my conversation, because this was becoming a very important part of the processes that we do. And then there's other things. I've been doing, learning really never stops. You'll be taking online courses. The ability to find courses online and learn online is amazing today. And that's one thing that I've really been able to take advantage of. And throughout my career, it really was, as I said, there's 26 years in software industry. And I've done everything from engineering, software development management, business development, evangelism, technical program management. And what I do today as this technical program manager, it's helping turning what the customers want to do, what partners want to do, into work for engineers to build. And that's what I do as a technical program manager. That, of course, takes some creativity, but and for me, working with media and entertainment companies adds a really fun aspect of creativity to me. That's the creative aspect that is really fun with my work, is I get to work with companies who do creative things, who make movies, who make television shows and things like that. And there are, if I look at these, there are some threads in here. There's domains that I have expertise in and I really like working. And those would be the creative design tools. That is media and entertainment, that's architecture. So if I can find aspects to my career that I can do these kind of things, I'm in my sweet spot. And as this talk really is about using design thinking, I really want to say that I got my design education at University of Arizona. In University of Arizona, there was this great set of professors. One of them name was Kirby Lockard, and he taught us as designing as drawing as a way of thinking. And that was basically, you have an idea in your head, and you take a pen or pencil, you put it down on paper, and you see what you drew. And there's a feedback loop that goes there. That feedback loop, that iteration loop of, I have an idea, I put it down, I see it, I modify it, I see the modification. That is an aspect of a personal level of design thinking. So being able to tell yourself, is this what I think? And then put that idea down and then iterate on that over and over. That is a real core component of what we call today design thinking. The term design thinking is a relatively recent term. We didn't use it back when I was studying at University of Arizona, but it is that foundation that I got here at University of Arizona was really key to my understanding of how to apply this design thinking that we call it now as design thinking. And he really taught me, across, and then the other professors, was drawing is the creative tool. Drawing is the way to get an idea out and see that idea. The aspect of seeing your idea on paper and then doing a feedback loop to say, no, it's not exactly that. Let me go and modify that and think about that and see it in a different way. And that aspect for me has had a lifelong interest for me personally in computers that you can draw on. And it started back in 1992 when I was studying architecture, is that I've had this fascination. So we see what you can do today with an iPad, with a phone you can draw on, and this sort of has been that progression. That's always been a real interest of mine. For me, working for a company like Microsoft, who makes tablets that you can draw on, makes it really fun too. So that sort of goes into what I've done for my avocation, for my fun. It really is that 30 years of journaling. Throughout the skill that I learned in architecture school at University of Arizona, I've kept that up. And I've kept that up, even though I didn't become an architect, I kept it up as in my travels, in the work. I've been traveling for work for years. Of course, not in the past couple of years because of the pandemic, but that travel offered me the opportunity, traveling on my own, but also traveling for work. I would always bring a journal with me. And if you can see back here, these are all my journals over the past 30 years that I sort of keep in there. And it's been a way that I have expressed my love of recording a place and appreciating a place and recording my journey. And so that has been a core part of what I do and what I enjoy. And so that sort of goes into this term that I've been talking about, design thinking. And design thinking is the best definition that I've seen. It's really it's a way of solving problems, a philosophy and set of tools that helps you solve problems creatively. It's just a little set of words, but it is the key aspect of this. It's a human-centered approach. It's an approach that starts with understanding what people want to accomplish and working with people to try out that approach. So the problem that this solves, is that people tend to jump into a solution too early, and that's where this is attacked. So if we look at design thinking, what this really is a set of iterative processes. So we start off with empathize, understand what people are trying to do, define, take what they're trying to do, define it, ideate, prototype, and test, and keep on going until you get it right. And that is a process that keeps on going until you find the solution that solves the problem that people have. To solve the problem of navigating a website, of filling out an insurance form, or of getting a COVID test, all the kind of things that are people-centric problems. You look at it from their perspective and see, are we solving it for what a person is trying to do? None of this sounds really novel, but it really is codifying this into a set of concrete phases that we look at. And if we look at this, empathizing is the first phase, and that is getting an understanding. It's talking to people. If you were to, for example, to want to define a process for getting a COVID test, the process would be talking to the different people involved. It would be talking to people who might want to get a COVID test, who may not think it's appropriate, people who are giving the tests, people who are administering them, people who are processing, all the different people involved. It means talking to these people and working these things out. And this isn't a design with paintbrush skill. This is something of understanding what people are doing, understanding what they want to accomplish, and really is the best term here is empathize. Then you basically take what you've learned in your empathizing and you define it. You say, this is the actual problem that we are seeing. This is the actual things that they want. And so this is doing a lot of, it can be doing a lot of diagramming. It can be doing a lot of writing lists. And this is where you're defining the statement, making a statement. This is the actual problem based upon our conversations. This is the problem we're trying to solve. Then you start to experiment. You start saying, okay, what if I solve the problem in this way? What if I, what are different ways of looking at this? What if I reorient the way I'm looking at this problem in this way and try to look at it, solving it in this way? This isn't making a solution, but this is talking and discussing and putting on paper and really understanding what are looking for solutions and exploration. And of course, there's lots of tools that we have online, on whiteboards for doing this, brainstorming, mind mapping tools, all kind of tools like that. And then it comes to the aspect of prototyping. The prototyping is based upon my assumptions, based on my empathy. I'm going to do an experiment. I want to say, let me try doing this in a small scale, not try to build. I'm not going to, it could be, idea of building a model car before you build a full-size car, or building something that is, or building a model of a building before you build the whole building. Of course, it's kind of obvious there, but we look at this in all aspects of design, is that we need to take our assumptions, make those assumptions concrete, and then so you can then try it out. You make those assumptions concrete, and then you can try it out. So an example, actually, I've been using a lot of images from my journals in this talk. This image is one I drew. I went to Cape Kennedy in Florida, to the NASA station, where they were doing research about how to make a machine that mines regolith on Mars, which is the sand-like dirt, I guess, that is coating Mars. They want to figure out a way to mine it so you can then turn it into building structures. So they were showing these ideas. They were experimenting with different ways of shaping wheels and shaping scraping mechanisms, and they were trying these out. They have the supposition that this is an example of what we want to try out. Let's build it and test it out before we send it to Mars, which is kind of obvious. We want to test out our models in an environment before we actually do the real thing. So you start to think about this process that I've gone through of the empathizing, defining, prototyping, testing, all these processes. And you can think about, well, can you step away and say, can these be applied broadly to other things? And one of the things people have found is that this actually can apply to your career. So I'm going to take you through. Before I go on to this, I want to ask, are there any questions about what I've talked about now? Actually, please feel free to put them in the chat, or you can actually go off of mute. This is a good breaking point. Any questions about what I presented so far?
Michael, I have a question. Just
Yes.
as you talk about that wheel, is there a prescribed amount of time that it takes to go through that whole process, or is that dependent on certain factors?
No, there is no prescribed amount of time. And the reality is that it isn't a fluid always going around. You may, for example, in your empathizing, you have some talks with customers, and you go to defining, you realize, actually, we need to talk to another type of customer. There's this other group of people we haven't talked to, but it is something that has a direction to it. So taking that direction is that before we even think of building a model, we want to talk to people. So there is a step ways to this, but you're going to go through this maybe a couple times before you get it right, and understanding that you're not going to get it right the first time, and that's really okay. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I love that. Talking about the process and how it's not always a linear process. I think that's really important for us to hear right now.
So now I'm taking this model of how do you apply this to your career? I started doing this, and I sort of formulated my own methodology. And then I saw this video from Bill Burnett at Stanford. He teaches a course at Stanford, and he put this video up, and he then wrote a book about it as well. But it's really, designing your career. And a lot of the themes that I had been talking about, he was talking about too. So I said, whenever in a lot of my coaching, this is a link I send to almost everybody who I do coaching and mentoring with. Take a look at this video. If you like the video, go get his book. And it really is a incredibly well done methodology that you'll see a lot of the things that I talk about are echoed in that way. But what I'm saying, it is, I'm not inventing something wholly new. I am sort of riffing on something that I've learned and then found after that I started teaching and I started mentoring that there's something that I talk about that is similar. And you can get, if you like this thread, definitely watch this video and maybe even get the book or something like that. So a lot of this is some of the key aspects that he talks about: curiosity, reframing, radical collaboration, mindful of process, and bias towards action. I'm not going to go into full detail on these, but there are some things that I'm going to go out into specifically. The way that he has looked at these 5 steps of design thinking, how he has reoriented them into 5 different ways of looking at this in your career. So if we go back to this loop, this wheel of your career, let's think about this in terms of empathizing, defining, ideating, prototyping, and testing. If we look at empathizing, the great quote from the bard Shakespeare: "To thine own self be true, do not lie to yourself." And the idea is understand 2 things about yourself. And this is where I talk about lists or itineraries. What am I good at, or what do I like to do? And this is something that is important at any stage in your career, to have a good understanding of these things. Let me think. Brian asked a question: how do you interact and address situations when you're working through your model yet they may want to jump into a solution right away, not taking enough time to empathize? It's a great question. Design thinking is a methodology that has emerged because people had that problem specifically, that they would go into finding a solution. So, an example is back when I was in graduate school, I had a roommate who was in law school, same age as me, and he had friends in law school with him who freshman year of law school, they had never been in a courthouse. Now, that is, for me, strange. My father was an attorney, so I had been in courthouse a number of times just watching him in court. But the idea of becoming a lawyer and never having stepped in a courthouse seemed incredibly strange and incredibly risky to me about this is the career you want to be in. So a lot of what this process can help you with is figuring out how to not jump into finding a solution, even though that may be very tempting. So I'll get into that as I go through the slides here. But really, make 2 lists. So really starts off with these 2 lists. Make a list of what skills I'm good at and things that I like to do. And the interesting thing is, what you'll find in your career, there are things that you like to do you may not be good at yet. And emphasize the word yet. And the other thing is, there may be things that you're good at that you don't like to do. I may be good at doing my taxes. I've never been audited, but I don't want to do that for my living. It's not my thing. So there are things, and you start looking at these things and creating for yourself these 2 lists, these two itineraries, and this becomes the basis of where you start to do empathizing. And you're really empathizing with yourself. There is nobody else to ask about what you like to do, except when you may ask a mentor or a friend, am I good at this? What do you think I'm good at? Asking your community, what do you think my strong suits are? And so if we want to look at this, I'm going to actually introduce a case study that I know very well. This is my older brother, and he's had to go through this reframing. And that reframing, I want to sort of share with you what he has shared with me about this reframing. So the pandemic has changed the world for a lot of people. For my brother, it eliminated for a very long time, relatively, his industry. So he had to reframe. Basically his industry was restaurants. The idea that people go into a restaurant, be presented with a dinner, a menu, and then eat that food, they love it, and then they leave. That whole process got put on hold for a long time, longer than people could support themselves, saying, okay, let me just wait. So he had to reframe himself, and it took a while, and this is something that is hard sometimes. And the aspect of this reframing is sometimes things happen to you, or a lot of things seem to happen to you that are beyond your control. Those things are, for example, global pandemics, life changes. So part of the life changes here, also that I'm not mentioning here, he had two little kids. Being a restaurateur, being a chef, and having two little kids isn't too compatible, because you want to be with your children on the weekends and evenings. Your restaurant, your guests at the restaurants want to be with you on the weekends and evenings. So you have to figure out where your priorities are, and those priorities change over your lifetime. So part of this reframing had to do with finding something that worked better for him as he has changed and as the world has changed. So if we think about this, making a list for him, thinking about a chef, think about, okay, what are the things that a chef can do? What are the skills that a chef likes to do and is good at? So he started making this list, and he started thinking about, okay, these are more things that come up with making food, managing people, budgeting, and then the other things that come with this. There's the being a chef and restaurant associate profession, a consultant. These are the kind of things that turned out to things that he was good at. And you start thinking that this isn't things like, I'm good at managing projects, I'm good at finding things wrong with people do. Whatever that is, these are things that you learn these by doing these, and you realize that you are good at these things, that may be better than other people at these things. That the ability, for example, for you to be able to tell stories, that is a really key for almost any industry where you want people to remember what you have to say. So he became very good at telling stories and storytelling. And if I tell anybody who wants to get good at storytelling, go to any of the Moth Story Slams or listen to the Moth podcast, because that's where great storytelling happens. And it's happening all over the country. And go to a story slam now, they're starting to get open. Do that. Storytelling becomes a really crucial thing for the job that I do, and for the job that he does, and the job that all of us do. Whenever you want somebody to remember something, tell it in a story. So these are the kind of things that he identified he was good at. And it turns out these kind of things are excellent for the world that he has now of a business broker. And for those you don't know, a business broker with small and medium businesses, when the founder wants to exit, wants to leave, rather than just turning in the keys to the landlord, they want to be able to sell that. So figuring out how to turn a business into sales, how to sell a small or medium business, it takes somebody to help them with that. And that's what they do. Act as sort of a broker in the way you would sell a house. This is how you'd sell a business. But this is an example of what reframing can look like. So it may be the kind of things that are useful in one, realizing the things that he did before, you're distilling these into essential skills that are then useful in future careers. So once you've done that definition, you look at your lists and then start thinking about what are industries, what are jobs, what are things that would be useful, just like my brother found in this brokering business brokering. How can you find ways of parlaying your skills in one field to be in another? So the thing I didn't talk about yet is my journey from architecture education to building the world of software. The skills that I identify as crucial that I learned in architecture education was I had a creative design process, I could think in 3 dimensions, I could change scale, I could present and defend ideas. That's what everybody learns in architecture school. And the thing is that the person who's going to pay you the least for these skills is an architect. So when I was entering the world of software, these skills were in high demand, but there were very few people in the world of software who had these skills. So my skills of being able to do this design thinking, or as was this creative design process, the ability for me to think in 3 dimensions, to be able to scale, change scale in the way I thought, and to be able to present and defend ideas, these were the skills that served me very well in starting in the world of software. So if the way that you look at it, the way that you define your skills, which industries, which jobs are these skills going to be in high demand? And so you start looking at your list and start analyzing, cross-referencing, and then you start looking in who do you know in these industries that you can find, and who can introduce you to somebody? And this is where you take advantage of the Bear Down network or other networks that you have to introduce you to find those people. And then basically the idea is that you ideate. You basically you start thinking. And so in the world of the type of coaching that I do, a lot of it is around combining creativity and technology. And so a lot of it is I work with people who want to do more creative work. And a lot of what I ask them to do is figure out something you can create today, whether that's a blog post, whether that's an article you can write, whether that's a drawing, making a song, building something, and make, or if you want to be a blogger, or if you want to be a personality on YouTube, set yourself a creative calendar. Set yourself a calendar so that you can create, and you give yourself a schedule that you're going to create on a daily basis or a weekly basis, and you really want to figure out what you can do today. So a lot of the challenges that a person who is thinking about trying an industry, they're saying, I want to be I want to get into the world of software. So you could learn some of the technologies. And then the key is start building things, start figuring out what you can do today to build something that demonstrates your proficiency with something. So in this case, the prototyping phase of the design thinking is trying something out. So the best thing that a student can do, or a person right out of college can do, they can do an internship to try out an industry. For me, I had while I was at Arizona, I had a summer job working for an architect, and I got to have a real understanding of what the architecture business was, and realized I'd rather be in the business of software. There was aspects of the world of architecture that I wasn't happy with in the way that the whole way of buildings got built, and so I wanted to figure out how can the world of software help that process. And this was 30 years ago that I started going down that path. So it is that idea of the internship is really crucial to be able to get to it. Don't look at it at the perspective of I'm trying to impress somebody to get a job, or I'm doing this because I want to figure out if this is what I want to do. It is much more important for you in an internship to figure out, is this my thing, than it is to figure out how to impress people so you get the job there. Both, of course, are important. And like a company like Microsoft, we use our internships as sort of an extended interview. So we look at people who are interning with us, and many of them may receive a job offer at the end of that, but many of them might not. But a lot of it is, so many are concerned with, am I going to get that job offer, and not thinking about, is this the right thing for me? And so that's where we really have to think about. Both of these are important, and it is things that you really have to try. And so if you can't get the internship, start jumping in to see if this is what you want to do. And that can be at the small scale. So for example, I started realizing I liked coaching people. I liked doing mentoring. So I set up a website, created a WordPress blog, created a website, and I started putting up a shingle saying, I can do coaching for free. This is the angle that I'm looking at, helping people combine their creative and technology worlds. And I'm going to try it out personally, seeing if this is something I like to do. It turns out I really like doing it. I'm not asking anybody for money doing this. I'm doing it. This is an experiment for me to see if this is a path that is the right thing for me. But I'm not quitting my day job, because this is a prototype that I'm doing for a possible path for the future for myself. So as I said, also, if you are doing something creative, put yourself on a calendar, telling yourself, I'm going to make and publish something every day, every week, every month, something like that. And what you'll find is, one, you get better at it. Two, you get feedback. And that's the key to this, getting feedback from your community. So it gives you that understanding of, am I going down the right path, or is there a recommendation that somebody can give me to make it even better? But without publishing it, without sharing it with anybody, it's just a little experiment that you're really not getting any validation. You're really not realizing, am I good at this? Because it's just me looking at this. So thinking about that idea of publishing to your community, whatever that is. So a couple of years ago, I found the Urban Sketchers community online, a Facebook group. There's urbansketchers.org. It is my muse. So when I was traveling, I would share my sketches. I get feedback. I'd see what other people are doing. And just by seeing what other people were doing, I got inspired in that way. So, and then, it is the idea of testing and sharing what you create, taking online courses in something that interests you. And then this prototyping, this testing is seeing if I like doing this. And, it is an ability for you to build something and show and build up a resume, build up a sets of experiences that you can then talk about, tell a story about, demonstrate, show here's a link to it, here's the app that I built, or here's the article that I wrote to demonstrate my expertise without even having a job. You employ yourself to do these kind of things and not wait to get the experience. And then, of course, applying to lots of jobs to get the experience of applying to jobs. That's a skill in and of itself. It's creating resumes for each different type of job and iterating on that. And then as you iterate on this loop, update your lists. Realize I did this, I didn't like it, or I like this a lot. I like this, but I'm not good at it yet. I'm going to take a course on it. So that is the whole looping cycle that happens. And then the other thing you can do, you meet people in this and you ask them, will you be my mentor? That's an easy question to ask. And the other aspect I sort of said is, I'm not good at this yet. If you look at that perspective, there are ways you get better at things basically by doing them. It isn't watching people doing it on YouTube. It is you doing it and getting better at it. And then you show you yourself doing it on YouTube if that's where the direction you want to go. And then this is what you continue throughout your career. Another way that I look at this is there are a couple axes to your career. This is specifically for a person in tech like myself, but you'll be able to understand that this is a perspective on it. And if you look at these three axes, there is the kind of work you do, whether that's coding, product management, whether it's software testing, whether that is design. There is the industry or domain. So for me, that'd be media and entertainment or architecture or medicine or something like that. And then there's the tools you use. That could be the software tools, the technology, or some sort of technology with every one of these. And every one of your jobs, you're going to emphasize something more than another. And your career is a path that you take throughout this, navigating these three axes. That you may start off in your job where you need to get really good at the tools that you like using. So that first job, you're going to be focusing on the tools. You may be in an industry that doesn't interest you, but you're going to get the experience of using the tools. Or you may say, I want to get into the media and entertainment industry, so I'll take any job whatsoever to be able to be a production assistant on any kind of film whatsoever, even if it isn't something that I'm into. And that's where you're saying the industry is going to be highlighted in a specific job. So where you want to get to, the path that you're going to, is when you're maximizing all three of these. You're using tools that you like to use and you're good at. You're in an industry that excites you, and you're doing the kind of work that you're best at. That is your career path, or a way of looking at your career path that is rewarding. That is it from what I wanted to sort of share with you. It is this talk has been evolving over a while, but it is really a perspective that I've sort of taken on it to say, building a career that is rewarding, it means understanding what excites you, what inspires you, and figuring those things out, and then acting on it to make yourself a career, to craft your career that is the right one for you. And this process is one that we apply this design thinking to, that we iterate over this process, and it really is never done until you decide that it is done. So I'm gonna pause for now and open it up to any questions that anybody might have on the information I presented, the perspective that I've seen, anything like that. So any questions?
Wonderful. Thank you, Michael. And everyone can use the chat to ask questions, or you can raise your hand and ask them yourself.
If you do ask a question, please turn your camera on, be appreciated.
Oh, yeah. I have a question that came in actually through the registration. One of it was talking about differences where people are in their careers, right? And this design thinking process, are there differences between those who are maybe early career or recent alumni versus those who are in the mid-career category? And what would you recommend for those in the mid-career category?
So the big difference is the breadth of experiences you've had so far. Those experiences you've had so far have determined that let you understand what I like to do and I'm good at. You start off in your first job, all you know is what you've experienced on your own and in school. And by going through those experiences, you realize that, I've been trying this for 2 years. I'm good at it, but I really don't like doing it. And that's where you start forming those lists and being critical of yourself to say, I've been really trying this hard. I'm not good at it yet. I don't think I'm ever going to be good at this. So I need to sort of reorient or reframe about what are the things that I actually am good about in this job, and how do I figure out what or those skills are useful to another. So it really is more about the experiences that you've had and how do you look back critically on yourself to say, was this a good experience in giving me valuable insight into myself?
Thank you. Another question that came in through registration was, how do you know when it's time to stop rather than re-enter the design process again? Are there any things that you can maybe share for those who
so
constantly in the wheel?
So when your day goes by so quickly, you say, where did all the time go? Rather than, as opposed to where you're looking at the clock all day. That's sort of the simplest way to look at this. When you feel that you're growing and you want to be growing, when you feel that you're learning and you want to be learning, then that's good. If you feel that you want to be learning and learning has stopped, then you need to find, okay, what do I want to learn? How do I progress? When you see that, you may come to a place in your career where you're saying, I'm going to hold tight for a little while because I have some other concerns. I want to raise my family in a certain way. And that means that I'm not going to go up the ladder as fast as I had planned when it was just me. So there are, and it really ebbs and flows with how you develop. And it is, so that's how I sort of look at this, is that if you are doing things that you enjoy and you like to do, keep on doing it. And if you find yourself, I don't like doing this work anymore, this isn't stimulating, I'm not growing, that's a really good sign. Or you find that you're doing a lot of external projects, you're finding you're getting all of your reward from doing things outside of work. Maybe that might be something, well, maybe if I could actually get paid to do the things I love to do, that might be better. But an example is that a colleague of mine in the world of software, he loves scuba diving. And he has sort of resolved himself that he's going to work hard so that he can spend as much time scuba diving outside of work. And that's the bargain he set for himself, saying that I'm going to do work that I'm good at, because what I really want to be doing is scuba diving. And I can't, scuba diving for me isn't a career, it's an avocation. So my bargain with myself is I'm going to do work that I'm good at, sometimes maybe hold my nose saying it isn't my favorite work, because it gives me time to do the stuff that I love.
Yeah, we've seen more of that come up in the career space, the emergence of jobbies, right? Where people, especially this past year with the pandemic, from working from home with remote work, have been able to explore some of these different opportunities.
Yeah.
And Michael, that just reminds me of what you were talking about in terms of the empathizing stage. Is that consistent with what we would do in that stage? Or
yeah, it's really understanding yourself, understanding, am I liking this work? Am I being, am I growing? And do I want to grow? And am I growing? Those would be the questions you ask of yourself. Or am I just doing the work and collecting a paycheck? If that's fine for you because it allows you to focus on things that you really enjoy outside of work, that's perfectly fine. But you have to do this in a deliberate way.
Excellent. Well, are there any other questions from the audience? This has been a really insightful presentation, and I'm so glad you shared the notes with us, Michael, and I'll be sure to send that out and post it on the Bear Down Network for others who might not have been able to download them from the chat.
Right.
So
I'd like to say thank you to Lacey so much. If you want to reach out to me, feel free. I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. Reach out to me on email. I'm available. If you want to have some coaching, please feel free on techcreativecoaching.com. And please do. I'm here.
Yes. And you are a part of our Wildcat Mentor Society, Michael. You're on the Bear Down Network. You are very accessible. We appreciate your time today. I'm going to just put up our final screen here and make sure everyone is able to see our final thoughts. Sorry. Difficulties. I'm not as good as Michael. But yes, join us on the Bear Down Network. Be sure to look back on our website. You can find ArizonaAlumni.com/Career Lab for upcoming events, as well as other really great opportunities and resources for you to navigate and manage your careers. And there is my contact information if you need that for any further questions.
Yeah, please download the deck. I posted it in the chat, so it's at the top of the chat. So if you want to see it, please download it. And if you have any questions, reach out to me. My email's on there.
Wonderful. All right, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. And thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.